Okay. We are live. I see myself. Hey guys. We're here waiting for you guys to show up.
Yeah, generally, I guess we can tell people that if they don't get a notification, it's probably because they need to refresh their browser. Because that's what I always have to do if they're not. Just make sure you refresh it first to make sure it doesn't pop up.
Well, I guess it depends upon whether if they're already on YouTube or not, huh?
Well, notification should show up either way. Well, I mean, it won't show up if you're not on YouTube, but yeah.
I don't know how this works. Some person came and left.
Anyway, I've got to get there yet. I got the notification, but I haven't went there yet. Come on, you.
No one's made it yet. It's been almost a minute.
Well, now I have.
Hi, Nix. How are you doing today? Nix made it.
I see that.
Looks like you made it too. All right. Ian is definitely feeling a lot better. It's coming along.
Yeah.
He's able to sit and stand up with a little bit less discomfort.
A few more days, I'll be right as rain.
Yep, looking forward to that. Looks like it's just us. I guess we'll see if anyone else shows up. Maybe we're just going to have our own private chat. But yeah, we're doing pretty good. Definitely. Just, doing the usual. Went over to the daughter's for Thanksgiving. She always puts on a huge spread. And I make my famous cranberry sauce. And I make pumpkin pie. Hi, Erin Jones. And apparently, Ian and I are the only two people who like pumpkin pie. So now I'm wondering why I make it for Thanksgiving dinner. We ate the rest of it, so that's a good thing.
It was good.
Yes.
I lost my.
It's like there's a few more of them who've shown up. Welcome everybody. Jonathan. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
I hear that the COVID has gotten supercharged in South Africa. I'm assuming you are safe. But it's like, wow. The news has been funny. Nick says for you two to eat. Haha. Yep, pretty much. We ate it all. We just finished the last piece this morning. I don't know why they don't like it. It's a good pumpkin pie, but
Yes, it is.
I didn't use nutmeg in it this year because sometimes nutmeg just seems like too strong of a flavor for me. So I just used cinnamon and mace, and Ian loved it. So easier to make even.
Yep, I like nutmeg too, but I think I liked it a tiny bit better without it. So, all right.
Yep. All these traditions people have. Ollie says, hello, I watch your channel all the time. This is the first time I was able to catch you live. Well, welcome.
Awesome.
Whoops. That was a bottle of water that fell off of a bucket. That was one of our Mayday buckets. Yeah, so everyone's fine. It was just our water bottle. We're
Nice.
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for attending and welcome to our live show. We get things rolling after a little bit. People ask questions and then we're in on it. I've had some interesting comments on the latest video, Black versus White. I didn't think I was political, so that was a surprise. But, that was that. Jennifer says, hello. Hi, Jennifer.
Well, you also missed
Oh.
the. Yeah.
Okay. Ollie says, I just picked up Queen Nefertiti's tarot deck today in an antique store. Have you heard of it? No,
And
I haven't. There's a lot of those. Jonathan says, I'm vaccinated, so I'm safe. There is one idiot I care about that I'm concerned about.
I think everybody has at least one.
I have a sister in North Carolina, and her and none of her family, they all refuse to get vaccinated, so they can't go visit my mother, who's 91, because my other sister won't let them, and neither will my mother, and neither will her doctor. So, and she's blaming Biden for it, which I find ironic, considering it's her choice. And she could have proposed like meeting outside. She won't wear a mask either, so I guess that was a definite no-go for her. So I don't understand that, but you know, I know a lot of people here who feel the same, and I don't understand it either. It's just one of those things that baffles me completely. Ryder says, hello, Siofra and Ian. Hope all is well with you guys. Hi, Ryder. Nice to see you. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. Ian has continued to improve. We have his doctor's appointment for his checkup tomorrow. Make sure everything is going like it's supposed to. So I guess we don't think anything's going wrong. So it'll probably just be a pretty fast in and out kind of thing. So yeah, we're doing pretty good. It's such a relief. I mean, emotionally, energetically, it's like Ian's really felt the relief of it because it's been
Psychologically stressful too,
Yeah.
because the condition my hernia was in made me feel very fragile, like it could strangulate and kill me at any moment or something.
Jonathan says, I've been smiling all week at Garuda spontaneously possessing Ian to interject evil last week. Damn right, Siofra, not just bird. Nope, he's definitely not just a bird. And the week before, after an involved discussion of scrying, someone commented, no use scrying over spilled milk. I missed that one.
That's cute.
That's pretty good. Yes. The puns never end. I only ever make puns accidentally, and when I do, I'm always surprised, and I always stop in the middle. And I go like, wait a minute, that was a pun. I didn't mean to make a pun. So I'm not very good at them. But I'm very good at surprising myself, so that's kind of funny. Everyone finds that quite hysterical, especially when I laugh at myself. But yeah, synchronicities are always interesting too. It's like there are some commonalities between people that you start to compare notes, and then all of a sudden you go like, well, wow, you know, I thought I was the only one who had that particular experience or thought process. It's not as unique as I thought it was. Like my granddaughter was saying, no new ideas under the sun. Somebody's always thought of everything. Somewhere along the line. Yep. But hey, we certainly have unique experiences. They're all our subjective own ones. So how are you all doing? I know Jonathan's doing good, which is good. How's everybody else? Staying safe, I'm assuming. And what are you working on? What do you want to talk about? Well, Ollie says, I was watching your video on astral travel last night, and I found all the experiences you shared so fascinating. Ian, I'm happy you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Thank you from both of us. Ryder says, I love what you are wearing. Looks really comfy. Yeah, this is kind of what I was wearing to Thanksgiving dinner, and my daughter never took a picture, so I thought I'd wear it today. Except I was wearing a different sweater. But yeah, I felt it's warm, cozy, and velvet, and I like that.
That's a good thing, yeah.
Yep, it seems like a good thing to wear. Ollie says, I haven't been feeling too well myself. I'm sorry to hear that. It's always rough when people aren't feeling well. It's difficult to focus and concentrate and get things done when you're not feeling good. I think yesterday was a day I had where I just didn't feel like doing anything at all, so I didn't. I just sort of hung out. Joey says, hey, Siofra and Ian, glad to hear you're both doing better. Thank you. Jonathan says, Solomon was the dude who first said no new things under the sun 3,000 years ago. Yeah, he probably got that from someone else. Before him, I wouldn't be surprised. Nick says, ooh, velvet, love it. Yes, I like velvet. Things that are soft. And I like the colors. It's like, I don't know if it comes across correctly on the video or not, but this is sort of a burgundy velvet kind of color, and I like that color. And then this is a gold crushed velvet type of thing. So they go together well. Yeah, it actually comes out not too bad, at least when I looked at it. Sometimes color doesn't translate as well through our camera for one reason or another. Don't know exactly why. So, what do we want to dig into today?
Pick a magical subject.
Yes. Besides tarot cards we've never heard of. There are so many of them now. I mean, there are so many different kinds of cards out there. Are those actual tarot cards, or are they cards that are based on, like, the major and minor arcana, but not actually with the same symbolism? I guess would be a curiosity thing. Mia says, hello, everyone. Hi, Mia. Jonathan says, Ian, do you try to sidestep the GD of Abraham in your Kabbalah? My impression is they're inextricably linked.
Okay, that's a pretty good question. First off, I'll say no, I'll answer it directly. I do not try to sidestep the God of Abraham in my Kabbalah, but there's two reasons for that. One is that the Kabbalah stuff is based on my main Kabbalah information comes from two sources. That's Barden's stuff, and then the Sefer Yetzirah, which was translated by Wynne Westcott in about 1937. Barden shows what the Kabbalah actually is and how it actually works and how to actually use it for the words of power and really have things happen. So he gives the lost functionality of the Kabbalah that the Jewish Kabbalists and the Western Kabbalists don't have. So Barden's Kabbalah is enough different, and it's not linked, it's the practice of the Kabbalah, and it's not linked to any specific gods or deities. So that's basically the kind of Kabbalah I do, though the God of Abraham is another thing, because I think that, yeah, there's a whole lot to that and to the Bible and such, but no, it is not bound up with my Kabbalah unless I was trying to do the Hebrew Kabbalah. And as far as I can tell, one difference between Hebrew and Barden's Kabbalah is in Barden's Kabbalah you learn to work in all four planes, starting with the Akasha directly. And in the Hebrew Kabbalah, each letter has a different color for each plane. So the mental color, the plane of Absolute, Braya, Yetzer, and Asaya being the earth plane. So each letter you're going to use has one of four different colors. And in Barden's system, it's simplified down. You have one color per letter, but you just gain the ability to work on it all four planes. So the God of Abraham isn't really relevant to the type of Kabbalah I follow and practice.
Sounds like a good, complete answer. Okay, so Nick says, I have a question on dream meaning, if that's okay. Certainly, you can ask. We'll see what comes out. So hit us with your question. Okay, Ollie says they do still have the same symbolism. Queen Nefertiti was the wife of Ramses II, who was known as the greatest king of Egypt. I've always been extremely drawn to Egypt, so I was happy to find them. Cool. Okay. Joey says, saw a show where a guy gets possessed. Demon told him name. It was old Egyptian god's name. He wouldn't say name, but described Sobek, crocodile god of protection. Do you think an old god would do that? I think a spirit can say about anything they want to when they're in someone else's body, and just because they spout out a name doesn't mean that it's their true name. And then with possession, you're working with the belief of the person who is possessed and the belief of the person who's trying to unpossess them. So it sort of gets complicated there. But yeah, I doubt that an actual Egyptian god would trouble themselves with possessing a human. Sometimes it seems less likely. So Nick says, is there any significance to placing food before someone at a table? Okay, so in general, dream symbolism is very specific to the dreamer, the person who has it. So depending on what culture and what significance you place to the act of putting food in front of someone at a table as like an invitation to join you, perhaps welcoming them as a guest in your house, would be the first things that would come to mind. But those books that have the general meanings, the universal meanings of dream symbols, are pretty much useless. There's very few universal dream symbols in my experience. So figuring out what your own means is a better approach. One of the things that you can do if you're trying to figure out the dream, you can first look at the dream you had on a practical, physical level, like are you about to invite someone over to dinner? And are you going to be feeding them? So maybe it's, just that. You can look at the level of everything in the dream is yourself. So is there something new that you're absorbing or learning and incorporating into your life so that you're taking sustenance in? And the act of putting the food in front of someone at the table represents you either sharing that information, or if everything in the dream is you, then you taking that in another form, like another part of you, as it were. And then there's like more of a, like, the people that are in the dream represent who they are. So if this is someone you know, maybe you're thinking about, having dinner with them, or maybe sharing information. I think I got doubled up in there somewhere in my head, but you get the idea. So Jordan says, signs a spirit is near. Thank you. That's what, I'm not sure who you're responding to. Ollie says, Joey, that's really crazy that you just said that. I just shuffled the cards, and the first card that fell was of a crocodile. Well, there's a synchronicity for you. Jonathan, let's see. Are you asking me for how you can tell if a spirit is near? Because that I can answer. Jonathan says, thanks, Ian. Great answer. I only learned about the Sefer Yetzirah yesterday, the first recorded reference to the Sephirot, the first text used to make golems, etc. Cool stuff.
I agree.
So signs a spirit is near. Depending on your level of sensitivity, a feeling. I often get a feeling tingling in the back of my head, or a sound sometimes in my ears, like a ringing or humming. A feeling that there's a presence, a feeling of being looked at, or the feeling of the person standing behind you, hearing movement in the room where you are. As an empath, I get emotions off of them. So if suddenly I have a huge emotional response that's not typical of me, it's different from who I am, then I know that there's some other source for that particular set of emotional responses. So you think of anything? He says no. He's shaking
No, I
his
just
head.
do when spirits are going to appear to me. They just like appear to me and either talk to me or not, and they appear just as an image in my head. So that's basically how I perceive it. So I don't get other stuff. But Barden does mention that when spirits first start talking to you, it's normal for them to sound like they're thoughts in your own mind, and after time you will learn to distinguish between the speech of spirit beings and your own thoughts.
That's
practice
the whole
learning yourself.
Yeah, getting to know who you are and creating your own boundaries and so forth is important with that kind of thing. But sometimes people end up getting signs that they're looking for. Like, I was watching a show about near-death and after-death experiences and so forth, and in some families, like, people will decide that after they pass, they're going to try and send a cardinal or a butterfly, depending on what their family feels is worthy or important or typical in their scenario. And then people will report seeing those animals in unusual settings and not in typical behavior. Like if you're seeing some cardinal sitting in a tree, that doesn't mean much. But if a cardinal suddenly comes over and lands on the post right next to you and starts to sing right at you or lands on your body, then that would be considered like an encounter with a someone you know that's passed over. And same with the butterflies. Some of the experiences some of the people talked about that they had, a butterfly being in a place that there was no openings to the outside, and all of a sudden inside there's this very specific kind of butterfly. So some of these things are family traditional. They only occur for certain families. It's like every family's got its own lore about that kind of stuff. In my family, dogs barking, howling, actually, like all the dogs in the neighborhood started howling at the same time, and in our family that was a significator that someone in the family had died, and that happened when my Uncle Jim passed. All the dogs in the neighborhood and in his neighborhood and everywhere where our family lived, they all started howling at the same time. So, you can get signs like that if it's become that kind of incorporated into the energy of the family and expected, and the universe will hear that and respond in kind. So, yeah, we also had another death omen in our family, and that was a bird flying into the window and dying. That has apparently not continued on with my kids. My daughter totally flipped out one day when a bird hit her window and died, and she was calling everybody she knew to make sure they were okay. So apparently that stopped working for us, so unless it was someone in the family we didn't know. I don't know. But it is interesting when that kind of stuff happens. And for us this time of year, it's more likely. I actually had a client who had a visitation from, she thinks, her husband who passed a few years ago, touching her hair and feeling his presence and hearing his footsteps in her room. So, yeah. Jordan says, thank you. I actually heard a man loudly whispering that could be perceived as my own thoughts. Well, when I was younger, I used to hear my name being called a lot. That's a pretty typical one for people to hear, especially when they're younger, it seems. And I'd be looking around and there'd be nobody there. Jordan says, understood. Sometimes while falling asleep or dozing off, I'll hear people whispering, once again, as if someone is directly in my ear. Could this be an indicator as well? Yeah, it could be. We have that kind of thing in our family, and our sensitivity to that sound is such that when it started happening to my granddaughter, I told her to just ignore it, because no matter how hard you listen, you can't make any words out of it. And it'll often be triggered by low sounds like a heater or something that rumbles a little bit in the distance, and it'll just kick that in. So I find it's there, but it's not useful to us at any rate. Shay says, hello all. I'm sorry about the bird dying and hope everyone is all right. Yes, I'm sure the bird was not happy about it. And everyone here is all right. Yes, we're definitely doing better. Things are improving. It's like going in the right direction. Yay. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be spirits. I mean, spirits are around us all the time, not just like human spirits, ghosts types of things, but nature spirits and other kinds of beings that have their job to do. Your own higher guardian or guardian angel or ancestor, whoever, whatever's your line and how that works for you. It's not. They just don't always make themselves known, or we don't always become aware of their existence.
I think we get used to it personally. My feeling is we get used to it, and some part of us, without ever letting it get to the conscious brain, just tunes it out. Just normally, like part of the background, the same way your mind, gets used to seeing the things that belong in your house, and if something has changed, that kind of thing. So I think there's probably a lot more spirits and spirit activity around than most people know.
So Jonathan says, this is a really, really difficult topic. Distinguishing paranormal from coincidence has no provable resolution. Everyone is somewhere on the spectrum from non-believer to batshit crazy. Well, that's true. And I mean, it is a subjective experience, and it's, unless it's going to be a very unusual kind of paranormal event. I was watching some show about paranormal event caught on tape or something like that, and I'm watching these different videos, and I'm thinking, well, that'd be pretty easy to fake. And I don't know that anyone faked any of the videos. It's just that skeptic in me. It's like, well, just because you can't see anybody in the room doesn't mean they don't have an invisible string pulling the covers open. It's just, yeah. And that's weird considering how many experiences I've personally had, but.
And the other thing is those things, it's always, a lot of times, part of the problem is the resolution is so poor you can't see much to really see what's going on. And I don't see why there's any reason for that with cameras today.
Well, the ones I was watching, a lot of them were home cameras, and they were actually pretty good resolution. So you might find it interesting to watch some of those videos, but I was just watching it for the entertainment value.
Then you got, ultimately people could do deep fakes.
Exactly.
And things like that too. So there's no way to tell them apart for the normal human being to tell them apart from something fake.
Unless you know the people personally or were there when it happened, there's no way to completely know. That's part of the problem nowadays. It's actually always been the problem because there were a lot of fake mediums and fake paranormal stuff in the late 1800s and the 1920s and stuff like that.
Nowadays you can make it look really good.
Yeah. You don't have that ectoplasm stuff in the dark with no lights on.
Green screens.
Yeah, right. Now we have a lot more technology where we could make stuff really look real. Get that hologram just doing all kinds of dancing in the middle of the room, and they could put their hand through it and it would look like it was really there. But yeah. So Ollie says, what do you think are some steps to take to get to know your spirit guide? Meditation, doing quiet reflection and meditation, getting to know yourself and so forth is always the first best step to getting to know your spirit guide, because it's like they could be yelling and screaming in our ear at the top of their voice, and if we're not listening, like Ian was saying, we sort of tune this stuff out, then they can't get through. The problem is us, not them. They're always attempting, if they want to give us information, they're always trying to do that, but we're the ones that have to change our vibrational state, our mental state, our focus, our attention, and so forth, and make it more inward where we can actually be present enough in ourselves to be able to, start to hear what it is, what the messages are and stuff like that. And I think sometimes the universe does its best to try and communicate with us. We'll have weird days where we'll say some word that random we haven't thought about in who knows ever, and then every show we watch someone will say the same word and we're going like, whoa, what the heck? So you can make patterns out of things that may have no meaning at all, but they're sort of entertaining in any event.
Then then there's things like my staff, which is a little harder to explain.
You want to elaborate?
Well, just the fact that we got given my staff to start with, so I figured the universe gave me a staff and I treated it that way, and I couldn't find a suitable crystal for the top because it was already set up to take a crystal in the top, and so I decided that I wasn't sufficient or worthy to put a crystal in that, and I asked the universe to help, and you know the rest.
Walked into, I think it was the Salvation Army, and they were selling the exact sized crystal for like 50 cents or a quarter or something.
Something like that, as a paperweight.
As a paperweight.
And this is a big quartz crystal. It's
We're
probably
talking,
yeah.
Yeah, it's like about that tall and about that big around, so it's a significant size, and it fits the staff perfectly. In fact, I'm convinced it's actually the crystal that was taken out of the staff when it was in the store where the woman gave it to us. and it found its way back to the staff.
At any rate, that's that's a little harder to explain by coincidence. I get given the staff, and then I get basically given the crystal for it.
The right crystal. Yeah. So sometimes things are just so unlikely that you just go like, wow, okay, that was different, not normal kind of thing. And that's a good example, really.
Yeah, and that all happened.
I was like, really? You're daring the universe to give you a crystal? That's how I was interpreting it.
Didn't that happen like within a day or two of
Yeah.
getting the staff? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, we went to the crystal
and we got
and
the,
rock
the
show,
staff was in
and
Florence.
and we were looking there to buy you a crystal when you said, I don't feel like we can just buy a crystal for this, and it's like, and find the right crystal this way, and they're so expensive, and so universe, if I'm meant to use this staff, then help me get a crystal. And that was like at least no more than 2 days later that you came back with a, I was like,
the exact
wow.
fit. I mean, it already had a leather collar around it with the exact geometrical shape of the crystal. It was already set up where they just pulled the crystal out, and it was a perfect fit. Didn't need to do anything.
Nope, just slid it
Fit
in.
right in.
There it was. Nick says that's very interesting, and Ruth says that is so cool. And yes, it was very cool. It was like, what? What the heck? So yeah, it's interesting. It's like we are free to ignore inspiration, but if we're being more in our life and more in the moment, we're more likely to follow our inspiration and see where it leads. And so that's one of the tricks. I mean, that's why I say magic is all the time. It doesn't matter whether you're doing the dishes or driving your car or or whatever it is. If you're in your life, if something needs to come through, it will. In fact, I think one of my early premonitions happened while I was doing the dishes when I was a child at home. It was the sound of the water going down the drain. It made like a burbling sound, and that translated into this huge noise, crashing sound that I had never heard personally at that time. And the sudden piece of information popped into my head. It's going to start at 9. It's happening at 9:30. And I started telling my mother about it, and her response was always, go to bed, go to sleep, and everything will be fine in the morning. Well, I can't go to sleep before 9:30. Even I was in high school, and that wasn't going to work. And I walked outside because I couldn't take it anymore. And at 9:30, all the lights went out, and I actually watched the accident take place. It was a small, like a convertible with, I think, 4 people in it, and they headed up a light, one of the power poles, the light pole, and I actually saw the lights go up into the air and heard the crash. And my mother came running out of the house thinking that I had seen my own death, and because she heard it too, because at night sound travels far. It was sort of interesting. But, it was like I wasn't doing anything in particular. I wasn't trying to get a vision. I was doing dishes. I wasn't thinking. I was just sort of automatic and hands in the water doing the thing. And then all of a sudden, bam, there it was. So that's the thing, is you never know for sure when information or inspiration is going to strike. Sort of interesting. Ian said hi to Marisol, and Marisol says hi. Hi, Marisol. Yeah, so that's the thing about the universe. It speaks so many languages. And that's dreams, and why dreams are important is because the dreams are the language of the universe too, or the language of your own subconscious at least, which is also the language of the universe, I think, at least whatever your own personal language might be. So it's kind of interesting.
Barton has some things to say on that kind of thing, but they're mostly irrelevant to this conversation, so I won't ring them up. But if anybody wants to follow up, there's some interesting stuff Barton says.
Well, there's a lot of things I'm sure that are interesting.
Well, true. Sorry.
Marisol said, hi, Ian, hope you're well. He
Yep.
is doing much better. Thank you very much. We still haven't found out what the allergic reaction might have been, but we will see the doctor tomorrow. Maybe we'll know, or maybe he won't know. I guess we'll see. But whatever. He's good. Angela says, hello all, blessings. Hi Angela, thanks for joining us. It's always good to get people in and asking your questions. I used to think I used to be Nefertiti. I have her nose. According to the statue, anyway. My mother put one of those hats on that go back like this, and when she put that hat on me with my hair up, I definitely looked like Nefertiti. Thought that was kind of fun. Gary says, hello, happy Sunday, love to hear these experiences, blessed be. Hi Gary, how you guys doing? Angela says, what's the topic today? Well, I did the video on black versus white, the idea that we have that there's good and bad magic and stuff like that, the assumptions that we make. So if there was a topic, that was anyone who watched that video, if they had any comments or questions about it, that would be one of the things that we could talk about today. Because it's come up fairly often. I mean, people ask us on a regular basis if we, work with demons, which we don't, and if we work with the Goetta, which we don't, and so sort of got the topic rolling on the last live show. And so when I was deciding what to do for a video, that was a natural topic to talk about, because we make these definitions and then we push them onto the world around us, and it can be difficult to know what's real and what's not real, or what's just us and what's really the universe and how it is, because human definitions of things and our interpretation of experiences sort of underlies pretty much everything that we do and everything that's out there. So trying to become conscious of that and not defining things in those terms, and just trying to look at the event or the energy or the action as a thing in and of itself, and how do you feel about what it does or the results it might have, is a better interpretation of that. So Angela says, did you hear they found Nefertiti's mummy, they believe? No, I didn't. Ollie says, I actually helped write the Wikipedia article on white magic when I was in college. It makes me happy to see that some of the research I did is still up. Well, good for you. Angela says, I personally believe magic is colorless because it comes down to your intent. So it's like dipping a paintbrush in water than dipping it in paint. Well, yeah, I mean, we interpret things by colors, and I'm not sure why. I mean, that whole thing has to do with the deciding that night is bad because we can't see anything in the dark and it scares us, and day is good because then we can see our enemies coming, which I think is the basic, where the basic definition comes from.
Yeah.
Jonathan says, I think of it as the right hand and left hand path. Have we told you where that comes from? I think we've talked about it a couple of times.
Of course, that's not how people use it nowadays.
No, people use left-hand path as meaning bad or fast or black, which is, again, back to that same definition of white versus black. Yeah. But you want to tell them that?
Well, it was a tantric thing. If a person was on a right-hand path, they were not having sex with the woman, and she was seated on the right, and if the person studying the tantras was having tantric sex, because tantras have nothing to do with sex in general except for a few, which are about tantric sex. There are some, but most of the tantras are not, have nothing to do with sex or intercourse. So the person on the left-hand path would be the one where the Shakti would sit on his left. This would be the female, and that was the left-hand path, and all the prudes and things considered that pretty awful, because they also did things like eat meat, which is like unthought of in India at that time for
being a vegetarian was the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was considered a bad thing, and that's where the actual left-hand path thing came from, as far as I understand, and then it just spread to be being used as anything bad.
So yeah.
But originally wasn't a value judgment.
It was just a position.
Yep.
Are you on the right or are you on the left of my hands? Which I think is great. So TM says, is the color of an aura always the same color or does it change with time experience? Okay, so basically it can definitely change with time and experience or with illness and with health. Most people will have sort of a basic color to their energy field, and that can sometimes tell someone who knows how to read auras something about them. But in reality, everything that's going on in your body can come out as a color, a shape, heat or cold, energetic impact, like in your aura from inside your body. So if you were diabetic, you might have something over your pancreas in your aura. If you had back problems, you might have something over your back in your aura. It's like a changeable thing. I mean, it's not static. So I think it depends upon how good you are at seeing all the different things going on in someone's aura. I know that my core color seems to be green when I can see it really well. It's a nice green. I really like it, which says something about my nature. I'm not sure exactly what, but it's supposed to, at any rate. But then there's other colors depending on what you're doing. So Ollie says, when someone read my aura, they said I had two colors, light blue and yellow. I'm not too sure on the meaning of having two colors. I want to able to find out much on it. Yeah. I mean, it might be one of those things that just the reader and how they read things, or, the yellow could have been an energetic thing that was going on. I mean, depending on how you define these things, again, we get into the human definitions of stuff where blue is like more spiritual, yellow is more physical, or something like that, if you're using that kind of thing.
We get it from our culture, and it becomes second nature, that red means stop and green means go. So we take, red is bad or angry or something, and it's treated almost like a bad color nowadays. Except when they use green, like a sickly green, to indicate that something's evil.
Oh no, if you watch TV shows, if the bad guy's not wearing black, he's wearing red. Red is definitely considered bad when it comes to characters and stuff.
And that stuff gets so ingrained, and you have to realize that it's really just something we've learned through our culture that we absorbed without ever really realizing it in most cases.
So Jonathan says, cool, not really following. Right hand means you're not having sex and left hand means you are? Or are they sex positions?
No, for the rituals, and Tantric sex is a specific ritual where they give offerings, they do homa, they do puja. The woman will be decorated in a certain way, so will the male. So, the Shakti, being a woman, seated on the right hand side, is the normal configuration for Brahmins and others in the Shaivism aspect, the sect of Shakti and Shiva. And being on the right is the normal, and then a very few, because India has traditionally had a very prudish attitude towards sex, except among the people that were basically enlightened. And for that ritual, the woman would start off on their left, and that is the one they would have sex with. But the reason that became, all the people that had the woman to the right, all the Brahmins and all the high household, not householders, but people in charge and everything, that's the way they all did it, and that was considered the right-hand path. And the left-hand path they considered barbaric because it used sex, they ate meat, all those things which proper Brahmins and upper-class snooty citizens don't adhere to, so they were looked down upon as sort of the, ooh, those guys, they do yucky stuff, and they have sex and stuff, and we're so pure with our abstinence,
I guess this is a comparison thing.
It was actually a physical placement. The rites are just a little bit different that they do between the two, and in one rite the woman starts on the left, and in the other rites the woman starts on the right, and that's basically just how it got called. Oh, you do that left-hand path, that means you like have sex and eat meat and all these horrible things. So that was,
So it's not a sex position.
yep.
It is. Right means no sex, left means yes sex.
Basically.
Whoops, I did it the opposite way.
That's basically, yeah.
Yeah. So Marisol says, can you talk about familiars? So a familiar is supposed to be an animal or a spirit that assists you in your magical operations. And so in the beginning, as far as like during the Middle Ages, when the idea of familiars came out in the first place, the assumption was that, you know, the animal was there as like a representative of Satan and his hordes and whatever, and you're a contract with them, and you would feed them your blood and so forth, and then they would help you get what you wanted and do your magic. That clearly is not where we're heading with this in this time. And the definition of what a familiar could be has been controversial, weirdly enough, for a while. As in, some people think you can't have a pet and have them be your familiar as well. And yet, in the beginning, with Gardnerian Wicca, I can't think of her name at the moment. One of his high priestesses, it'll come to me later, after we're all done. She wrote, I was reading a book that she wrote about magic, and she talked about it, you could have one as your pet, and that's always been the case. So it doesn't have to be like just a spirit being or something like that. And some people have them, some people don't. It's not necessary to have one. You can have an assist if you need it, that kind of thing. So I guess that's all I have to say on that right now. Jennifer says, has anyone read the book How to See and Read the Aura by Ted Andrews? I flipped through it, but I haven't read it and don't know if it's a good one. I haven't read it, so I'm not sure. Depp says, At the Left Hand of God is a nice book. Joey says...
I'm writing a comment on that right now.
Oh, okay. Joey says, if I recall
Well, you
correctly, the woman on the left was very unattractive.
Oh, well,
I don't think so.
Can't say about that. But At the Left Hand of God was a particularly good one, and I thought I might want to point that out for anybody who's interested in the Kundalini or Kali practices, things like that. Because Swami Vimalananda, I believe, is the same Swami Vimalananda that actually helped translate and helped with comments on a number of Tantric books that Arthur Avalon printed, including his Hymn to Kali. In fact, has commentary on it by Swami Vimalananda, which I, like I say, believe is the same guy in the Agori book. He sounds like the same character, believes in the wine, has Kali as his personal benefactress, so to speak. And if I remember right, it was because he was forced to do the ritual at gunpoint, because he was afraid to invoke Kali, but sorry, not to get too far off base, but yes, I highly recommend it for someone who's interested in the subject.
Aresta says, I have heard that virgins have better connection to mana and therefore better connection to spirits. They say that sexual intercourse, the mana is lost to the earth element. Is that true? Well, I have 2 children, and I don't think it's true. I think that's another one of those myths kinds of things. It's like the idea of purity being better than a worldly experience and that kind of stuff.
I can tell you that, speaking as a man, men definitely undergo an energy loss if they have a physical ejaculation. So.
But I don't know that that means that you're not connected to spirit.
Well, no, but.
And you have lost the connection to spirit.
Only if you're incessant about it. I mean, yeah. If you're not like getting too crazy, it's normal.
Well, I think again, this is another one of those judgment calls that we make, and value judgment. I really feel sorry for virgins who are supposed to be sacrificed to the gods, because, sucks. They have a lot of movies like that.
Yeah, but the Indians have a lot of ideas about celibacy to preserve energy, and that's their main approach, the people who are serious about it. it's not, it shouldn't be considered as an evil, but just as an approach used to conserve energy. In the same way, vegetarianism is used to cleanse the body, but there's no God, you know, that's going to go beat you up because you eat a hamburger in general.
Well, there was some people
But,
that with their kundalini, eating meat was the only way to keep them alive
right.
and to
So
dampen
that's
that
true.
energy down.
So that's just a generality.
Yeah, like
general
everything
belief,
else, there's specifics to each individual situation and that kind of stuff. So Jonathan says, that's awesome. Now I'm more motivated to keep thinking about it as left and right hand paths. Nadia says, what kind of meditation would you recommend for blocked root chakra? Anything that you can do on the ground. Sitting on the earth would be a good meditation for that. Imagining that you have roots, pretending to be a tree, trying to imagine what it's like to have those roots and that connection, because the root chakra is about that. That's your connection to the earth energy, your life force itself comes from there.
Also, putting your consciousness there and just meditating on it, meditating on the root chakra, its meaning and such, and its symbolism, if that appeals to you.
Holding some hematite can be good for helping with that, because hematite is probably one of the best stones for root chakra stuff, because it's such a heavy metal and very earthy and dense, since it's mostly made out of iron. They actually used hematite at one point for making rouge. They would wet the hematite and rub it, and the oxidation of the iron would create the red color, and then they would use that red color. That was one of the first makeups, was hematite. I actually had a stone I used for that when I was a belly dancer. I had kohl, the Kohl, the black stuff, and then I had hematite stone that I used for the rouge. It's kind of interesting. Love your brooch, thank you. I made that brooch. It's one of my knot works kind of thing.
Paul Brunton, sorry, that's what I was trying to think of earlier. Arthur Avalon or Paul Brunton.
And I was thinking of Doreen Valiente. Now that we have that out of the way,
Names out of the way. Back to what
they all came up. Yay! So Jonathan says, why I first came to like the distinction is the idea that I don't always use my left hand, but I'm not going to type behind my back. I retain my choice to use either or both hands as I decide to.
Well,
and I agree.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel about it, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when we make those kinds of proclamations of this is the only way to do it, then we're leaving out the rest of the universe. And if you just think about life forms that we have on the planet, every environment has a different set of life forms, both flora and fauna. So the kinds of animals and plants and things like that, and potential dangers and things that are beneficial change depending on where you live. So if you live up north where it's cold, you're going to have one set of stuff. If you live in South America in a jungle, you're going to have another set of stuff. So, you know, to assume that there's only one set that works is just sort of silly. I mean, it might have been sensible in the past when no one knew anyone else, that anyone else existed or anyone had any different kind of stuff, but we now know that that isn't the case, and that there's a lot of variety out there. And so, yeah, that's my take on that. So Nadia says, great, thank you so much for the advice. You're welcome. Whatever it was. Because by the time I get to those things, I don't remember what I said.
Well, that's all right.
Oh, that was what kind of meditation would you recommend? Okay. I actually can see that, so that helps. So, yay.
Yeah, I have more of a tendency to mention Hindu stuff just because I'm so attracted to it, but I'm irrationally attracted to it for a white person, but I think there's some past life connections there. So, if I bring it up too much, forgive me.
Well, we've speculated on that since the Hindu deities seem to like me a lot, too. So, yeah, it's like there's got to be an energetic connection somewhere in our energy fields. We have a lot of things like that in common, though.
True.
We were walking the same path parallel to one another before we met, and then we continued to walk it after we met, so that's been pretty awesome. So Nadia says, is it good to get a reading about future, or is it better to live without knowing? Okay, here's my take on getting a reading about the future. One, do you know the person is actually accurate? Would be the first thing. Two, is it going to change how you're going to respond to your life? If you believe what they say, are you going to make it more likely to happen? Because confirmation bias is a real thing. I mean, if somebody says something casually, and this can happen, they can just casually mention something, then all of a sudden, bam, it happens all around you, because now you're paying attention to it and you're looking for that. So if free will is important to you, I think that working on yourself in the now is the most important thing you can do, becoming as genuine and real for who you are as you can, because somebody says you're going to step out in front of a truck and get killed at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Do you really need to hear that? you know? And the reason why a lot of people go to see someone about the future, it's like, am I going to get married? Am I going to have children? Am I going to get a new job? Am I going to move? And these are choices that you can make on your own. You don't need someone else to tell you to make them. The experiences that I've had with like psychics and readers and stuff like that is I'm annoying. I'm like a very annoying person to read because I argue with them all the time.
Well, I can tell everybody one thing. I've been to many psychic fairs, and my wife is by far the best clairvoyant I've ever met. None of the others convinced me they were clairvoyant at all.
So yeah, like the first time I had a palm reading, she told me, she looked at my palm, she says, you're going to have 4 children. I says, no, I'm not, I'm going to have 2. She says, it says right here that you're going to have 4. I said, I don't care what it says right there, I'm going to have 2. And that's how many I have, 2. So, some things are choices. And if you let someone take your choices away for you, then you're not walking your own path, you're walking their version of your path. You know what I mean? So, Jonathan says, what was the political problem someone had with your video? They didn't say. I don't know. I haven't sat to re-listen to it to see what it was. I didn't think I was being political, but if I was, then, it's just me. So anybody and everybody can think whatever the hell they want. It's up to them anyway, not up to me, right? So Glory Wise says, do you know your astrological birth chart? If so, do you incorporate it into your practice? Yes, I do know it, and no, I don't in particular. I mean, it doesn't change anything that I do. Most of the time when somebody does my birth chart, they're completely and totally wrong about who I am as a person. So their understanding of astrology is limited. As I've only met a couple of actually good astrologers who get beyond the basics and so forth. And, when you're born is an influence on you for sure, but it's not something that you have to follow. And I remember so many past lives. I don't think that when I was born in this life has that much meaning to me in particular.
They're like tendencies, and if you want to override a tendency, if you think it's a negative thing and you want to override it, you can do that. The planets influence, but they don't do anything else. They don't force or anything.
Jonathan says, Ian, I like your references to Near and Middle Asian stuff, same as I like Siofra's references to Celtic stuff. You guys actually complement each other beautifully in this forum. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
We think we're very complimentary as well to one another. And I like you. So there's another compliment of a different kind. But see, that's the whole point, is that, you can be with someone who has different experiences and different perceptions of what's going on without it becoming an issue, because we're confident in who we are. And so I think generally speaking, when people have a problem with how somebody feels, it's because they feel it's a threat to them somehow. And that the other person is saying something about who they are by not believing what they believe, which...
That seems to be the most common reason for that, I think.
Ooh, what's that? Is that a spider?
What, you have a spider?
I think I might have a spider. It went away. It's underneath the computer now. So Nadia says, is a fear of never meeting a soul one is looking for, also known as soulmate, a common thing? And can anything be done to lose that fear of remaining by yourself till you pass on? I feel fine on my own for now, but I'm worried for the future.
Well, we both felt like we were never going to find the one. I'll tell you that.
Well, that's true, but we weren't looking for each other when we met one another, so
Right.
that was a big surprise. My personal take on that is working on yourself and being who you are is your best chance of meeting someone compatible. Nope.
And having a good relationship. I agree.
Yeah. So it's I mean, if you're comfortable where you are, this is also a societal judgment kind of thing that people put on each other, or society puts on members of the society. That there's expectations that in order for you to fulfill your role as a human being and to be successful, you have to meet certain goals, like find a mate, have children, have grandchildren, have a good paying job, or whatever the goals might be. So it's I think those are artificial external things that movies, shows, books, programming, and stuff like that put on us, and it's best if we can get out of them and not put them on ourselves. Because, my position on being in a life is that, the main goal of being in a life is to have a good and happy life to the best of your ability, whatever circumstances you find yourself in. And if you can do that, then it's been successful. We don't have to have a major purpose coming in, that a thing we have to fulfill in order to pass our test of whatever life is supposed to be about. It makes it a lot simpler to actually have an existence and be in a life and enjoy the moments that you have. If you're always trying to look for something else, you're focused in the wrong direction. You're focused away from where you are and how you feel about where you are. And if you are enjoying being by yourself, that's a good thing. It's like my granddaughter doesn't want to have any children. I would never try to make her have children, because that's how she, it's like, it's not about what I want or might like or anything like that at all. It's her life. Although my daughter, yeah.
Well.
Anyway, back onto that. Angela says multiple perspectives are amazing. Yes, they are. Misty System says, hey, I love your jacket and brooch, overall outfit. Thank you. Jonathan says, I view astrology the same way I view Kabbalah. Oops, something moved on me. There is wisdom in it, but it's ridiculously complicated to find that wisdom.
Well, that's true too.
I restrict my astrology to the sun and moon, and that's overwhelming. Yeah. Well, I plant by the moon, and so that was interesting to learn about, how the moon affects the plants in the ground and basic planting by the moon methods. So I did use astrology for that. I had an astrology calendar that helped me learn how to plant by the moon, because they focused on that. I can't remember the name of the company that did those calendars, but I got one every year for quite a while. Nadia says, I don't need to find marriage and never had this kind of pressure, more like fearing personal fulfillment not happening. And I agree with what you said, and thank you for your take on it. Helped me think. Well, that's good. Marisol says, yay, hey, haha, Jonathan, that's so true. Well, some people, it's just what they're interested in. I mean, everyone's going to have a different kind of interest in something. Like the person who is just so curious about this one thing that they'll spend their entire life trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of different people who do that, and I think it's amazing that they've devoted their entire life to try and figure out this one little thing about the world and how it works. We wouldn't have all sorts of different kinds of science out there if we didn't have people like that who wanted to be archaeologists or anthropologists or geologists or astronomers or whatever. It's like they have a curiosity about the world around them, and they want to know how it works so that they can make it work different. And that's good. That's investigative curiosity is a good thing, but it's not for everyone. And I know that. These are my strengths. So, all right. I don't think that spider has come back. He was little guy. If it was a spider, it might have been a big ant.
Basically that's why I don't do astrology, is because I could just never get the interest up in it, even though I know there's some validity and such there.
Well, I worry about everybody who's worried about solar flares. I mean, as a species, we have evolved in the presence of numerous solar storms throughout our entire existence. So if they were that bad and they affected us that terribly every time we had them, I doubt if we would have made it this far. So I find some of that stuff kind of like annoying in the extreme, that people are looking for reasons why they can't cope. Oh, there's a solar storm. That's why I'm feeling like this. It's like, take responsibility for your own feelings and your own actions and do something about it. If you're really worried, put on an aluminum hat. Block those rays. But yeah, we have a tendency, there's a portion of the community that blames the planets for everything that's going on. And like Ian said, they're influences. They don't make it happen. We're the ones who make things happen, so. Or not. By not doing anything about it. But hey.
Yeah, it's the same way for doing magical things, though, astrologically. If you put it at the perfect astrological time, it'll help your spell a little bit, but it, in general, won't make a huge difference, except for a few specific rituals people might do.
Well, it really depends on how your subconscious works. When I made my wands, when I make a planetary wand, I work on it on its day.
And that just makes sense.
And I just decided that's what I wanted to do with them, because I wanted to focus as much of my attention on what I was doing. So when I made my Mercury wand, I worked on it on a Wednesday. And when I made my Mars wand, I worked on it on a Tuesday. Now, if those associations are inaccurate and not correct, it won't matter, because those are the associations I've incorporated into my subconscious. So to me, they connect me with that particular energy. And so, it's like there can be a lot of different associations out there and they can all be correct, even if they're completely different from each other.
Because viewpoints are completely different from each other.
Exactly. And so, it's what you've put into your own brain, your own unconscious and subconscious, what you've absorbed from the things around you, the literature that you've read, and the studying that you've done, and it creates the subset of associations and symbolisms that's specific to you and your experience. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to feel the same way about them, and it doesn't mean that if they feel differently about them that they're wrong, because they have another set that works for them. The universe doesn't care. It's really big. It's like, we're a small part of the universe. It's like it'll respond to the way we put energy out, and it will respond in kind and try and give us energy back. And it's that's our base communication line when it comes to how things work, no matter whether we're doing tarot or dreams or, song lyrics or whatever, or astrology. We can decide whether it's real or not. So, let's see. I think I missed a bunch of people as I was yakking. Okay. Jonathan says, Nadia, I've seen it a multitude of times, and every time it was exactly when that person overcame their fear of being alone that they met the one, which is why I'm working on overcoming that fear. And not being jealous of people who have found it. That's actually a big thing. And I've seen that in person. When people say, I'm sick of seeing nice pictures of you guys holding hands, it just makes me sick to my stomach. That doesn't make you attractive to someone. Because if you don't appreciate that other people are in a good place and not take it personally, then you're souring your energy field. So Bep says astrology can be a beautiful mirror if one is called to it, like anything. Yep, absolutely. Like I said, I've met only two really. Well, I guess the one was a pair, so three. One is an individual and one is a pair. Those women in Santa Cruz were incredible. They had it all in their head. They looked like they were sisters, but they weren't related. They had the same, thick glasses and the same kind of look. And you'd find them on the bus all the time. And they would come up and they say, when were you born? And you'd tell them, they go, oh, okay, so blah, 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 blah. And they just rattle off all this stuff about what was going on in your life and what was coming and what to watch out for and everything. And they were amazing. And my friend up in Saskatchewan, I had astrological dreams, I guess, that really annoyed him. I was thinking about this the other day. I once woke up in the middle of the night or had a dream about Pluto and its significance, astrologically speaking, what it meant and how it influenced us. And so I went to tell my friend Gary about it. And he just looked at me and says, "How the hell can you do that?" He says, "I study this stuff all the time and I barely understand it. And you come out with this stuff and it's absolutely true. That would be exactly what it ought to be." And how did, I don't know, I dreamt it, tuned into him maybe when he was sleeping. Who knows? But, so, and I definitely have some relationship with the planetary spheres. So Nadja says, what should one be careful about when moving far away from home for a longer period of time in regards of spiritual well-being? Are there any things I can do before to make the transition easier? Well, I guess it depends on how adventurous you are and how different the place you're moving to is going to be from what you are familiar with. There could be a lot of things depending on what sort of place you're going from and going to that could be contrary, culturally speaking,
Yeah, and depending
society-wise.
You'll certainly have to adapt to new environmental conditions.
If it's a different kind of weather pattern, you can probably expect to feel weird, like listless and not energetic or super hyper energetic, depending on your reaction to the situation. I would take some things with you that make you feel grounded and remind you of home or your center, wherever that might be, so that you have that part of you, that an object that you can hold on to that will bring you back to that place.
I've always found out when I've moved, I had to try to make harmony with the nature spirits in that area. I would notice it, even when I'm just inside the house with the doors closed. It always takes me a while after moving to get in harmony with the environment like that on a psychic level also.
Getting in touch with the local spirit beings, nature spirit type beings or local spirits or whatever would probably be a good idea. So maybe some offerings of some kind that are appropriate for where you're going to. I used to move around a lot, and when I did that because I was too sensitive to people's thoughts and hearing their thoughts and things like that. And moving would make everything deaden for a while. It would take me a while to tune in. So I would imagine that moving would do the same thing for any person who's a sensitive of any kind, because it's going to be confusing and a lot of new information coming at you and trying to put things in place and so forth. So whatever comfort things that you have, I think would be a good idea while you're going through that transition. If it's only going to be for a specific period of time, keep that in mind, that you're going to be going back to where you came from or back to what you know. So, Jonathan says, and women can smell desperation from a mile away. At least I've sorted out my jealousy and neediness. This is true. He says, completely different language, Europe to Japan. That's a different culture, too. Any advice for Japanese spirit offerings? They have some different kinds of temples there.
I know very little about it myself, Japanese.
You might want to do some research and see what you can come up with and find out about. And then depending on where you are in Japan, it can be extremely people dense because they have a much larger population than at least where I'm from, where I am.
Yeah, and in Japan you get all kinds of different things. You get Zen, for example, which doesn't really give offerings to the spirits. The other couple of things I can't think of, one of them was descended from the Bonpo shamans. And then general Buddhism is widespread, I know that, so something along those lines. But since the Buddha isn't a god, there's nothing to offer him, so I guess I really don't have much to add.
She says, I'll do some research, and when I get there, I can report back. Good. It's always good to know firsthand. I actually have a Japanese temple bell on my staff that my friend, when she was walking a jungle path in Bali, came across on the path on the way to a temple in the jungle, and she picked it up and brought it back, and I put it on my staff. So I don't know why I'm sharing that, because it's the only Japanese thing I have. Maybe. And Kuan Yin. So getting a Kuan Yin probably a good idea. She's very well respected in Japan, all over the place, as far as I know. They like her a lot. But yeah, they have a lot of very specific to them cultural stuff that I'm not familiar with. So Europe to Japan.
That'd be quite a shift.
Yeah, could be a shock to the system.
Yep.
Learning the protocols for greeting, meeting, and so forth. I'm sure there's a lot of business protocols that are going to be different than you're familiar with if you're going there because of job. Carousel says, I like working with the planets. I would wear colors that I associate with them to have their energy around me.
And of course, a person could do that according to days if you wanted to, with using the old thing of Monday is the moon and Tuesday Mars, that thing.
Yeah, whatever you do, if you're trying to work with a specific kind of energy, surrounding yourself with the things that make you think of that energy is going to assist you in tuning into the energy. You don't want to have the opposite thing, like, glaring at you. If you're trying to do lunar work, you don't want to suddenly have the sun staring you in the face.
There was an ancient magician that was said to have great luck by having 7 of the talismans of the greater key of Solomon, one for each day of the week, and he would invoke that. So, Mars, Mercury, whatever, he would invoke that during that day, and then wear that particular talisman for that planet on that day, and he would do that every day of the week, and he said to have some fabulous luck and spectacular things happen because of that. But I can't remember who it was, sorry, too long ago that I've read it.
So the Misty System says to Nadia, one practice that helps when undergoing a big move is signing up for a local cuisine cooking class when you get there. It can be a good way to interact with new people and possibly make friends. Not a bad idea. It'll be interesting, though, I'm sure. People do it, and
I think it would be interesting to visit. I don't think I'd agree with a lot of the aspects of their culture myself. Not in this lifetime, anyway.
Misty System says, plus it helps one become more connected to the new culture and is a skill that you can have for the rest of your life. Nadia says, luckily I have been preparing myself, learning culture and language, and been there for half a month or so. I'm hoping transition won't be too hard on me. After all, I'm still on the same planet. Yeah, but you'll have different water, you'll have different light, the sky will be different, the air will smell different, there'll be a lot of differences. It's sort of surprising how much variety we have on the planet. And yes, you will be on the same planet, but you will be in a completely different part of the same planet.
That doesn't mean you'll necessarily have difficulty with it, though. It's just a process of adaptation like anything else.
Yep. Those who adapt well survive better. I do believe that. I think flexibility in attitude is one of the things that helps us to adapt to things. So, not taking things personally if there's misunderstanding, or if the traditions are so different from what you expect or whatever. Be like an anthropologist. Try to be one with the culture. That's one of the things that anthropologists are pretty famous for doing, for trying to blend into the culture that they're trying to study so that they don't become the story and and then they can figure out what's really going on and stuff. Of course, they have their own assumptions that they're making about what they're seeing and so forth, which is another issue altogether. But hey.
Yeah, but at least joining in with a culture like that provides a much better idea, really, than trying to stay apart and study them from afar and look at everything under a microscope.
Well, I remember reading about one anthropologist that went to some kind of a native environment and realized that pretty soon she needed to be topless like everyone else because wearing clothes made her stand out, and everybody was like fascinated by that, and then she became the story instead of becoming a part of what was going on. So Marisol said, that's really interesting. Thank you, Ian. I just learned about the days being associated with the planet's gods. The Misty System says, I gotta go, but thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for participating. Bye. Nadia says, the main reason I'm going is to follow my biggest dreams, so it will all be worth it. Good luck. And Bep says, since we share a Celtic connection, would love to hear your take on standing stones in Ireland and UK area, whatever you feel to share. I think they're awesome, and there's a lot of mysteries around about them still. And whenever I've not been there, of course, because I've never left North America except to go to Hawaii a couple of times. But I have been to some sacred native places here that have similar types of energy to them. And I went to an ancient medicine wheel in southern Saskatchewan, and the energy of the place is just quite remarkable. So, in my imagination, that's what I would feel if I went there. I would feel the energy of the place and the passage of all the people that came before. I've had some experiences here of that kind of thing. We spent a weekend at in some park. I don't remember where now. I think it was a state park or a federal park. And while I was sleeping that night, I saw a group of Native Americans going down to the lake and building a sweat lodge and having a ceremony. And I got up, and there was no evidence that anything had happened that night, so I knew it was a dream, as it were. And it seemed like it was real. It had happened in the past, and sometimes I have that happen where I tune into past events. And then I talked to the ranger that was there, and I asked him some questions about what the place had been used for in the past, and he confirmed that indeed this was a sacred site for the local population before other people came in and ruined it. And that was what they did, was build a sweat lodge at the lake edge. So I think that the more history and repetition of like ritual or sacred happening, gathering, or whatever happens on a specific place, the more the energy is alive, I guess, would be what I would think. So, Atlas Altus says, I want to incorporate music into my spells. Do you have any tips?
Enjoy it. Biggest one. Let it get your mood and your feelings up.
Yeah, find some good music that you like. Use it in a ritual.
You can definitely use that extra energy to help.
Nadia says, gotta sleep as well. Thank you for all your advice given so generously. Planning to support on Patreon in December to express my gratitude for all my questions answered here. Really glad I found you. Well, thank you. We appreciate the support. You're welcome. Writer says, at Atlas, that sounds like it would be a lot of fun. Yeah, and with everything else, it just depends. Like if you have a special instrument that you use for ritual, yeah. I did a lot of dance and chanting and songs, that kind of stuff, with my rituals. And sometimes we had drumming and that kind of thing that happened in order to raise energy. I mean, anything like that that can get you out of yourself and get you into your younger self, the child wonder and awe of things is going to help with magic, because that's really the core of where it comes
I know that
from.
one of my best meditational experiences I've had happened when I was listening to music. And I recall that's happened to other people too. It kind of came spontaneously. I'm not going to go into specific details, but they don't because they don't matter. But that was it.
Okay. The writer says that Atlas watch bed knobs and broomsticks. Well, I mean, a lot of people like rhyming
Yes. Well,
with their spells because it's easier to
well,
remember.
at least one very serious magician, Aleister Crowley, used a lot of poetry in his stuff, both his own poetry and that of Swinburne, I believe how it's pronounced. And he liked that for a lot of his ritual stuff, was poetry.
So TM wants to know if we've ever met any Neptunian or Martian spirits. Well, I've been to both places, so I probably have. But I haven't worked with them specifically. I mean, I have like a casual acquaintance, as it were.
I don't even have that. I've done nothing with those spirits.
Jonathan says, wow, bed knobs and broomsticks, what a crazy blast from the past. Hey, some stuff is just universal, right?
That's right.
Timeless. Who knows for sure?
I'm
But
already starting to want to work on the yard.
well, that's probably a good sign, but don't you start yet. You
Okay.
still need to heal some more before you start mowing.
Okay.
Because I think that that's probably more than 20 pounds to mow the lawn, so gotta wait a while.
Sorry, didn't mean to change the subject.
That's okay, we've only got a couple of minutes left. It's like an hour and 26 so far, so
Well, I guess people better get any
last minute
or anything
questions
in,
so I can
last-
talk really super
last
fast.
Things they want to say, yeah.
I always enjoy myself anyway. It's always fun.
Yeah, it is. Well, we're down here kind of isolated. We don't have a lot of people to talk to. There used to be people in our neighborhood, but not anymore, so.
I ran into one of our old friends
Yeah.
in the store yesterday, and she came up and said hi to me, not wearing a mask. And I'm like, okay, I know where you stand. I'm like, please stand farther away, because I'm not interested in testing anything at the moment. It's just, But hey, yes, that's our community. There's a lot of people who don't believe that mask wearing is important because they want to be exposed. Is Ian still green?
Am I still green?
I think he wasn't green. I think he was orange.
What are we talking about?
Your color in your belly.
Oh, it was yellow actually.
Yeah,
No,
yellowish.
that all came off, but I do still have a big bruise right around the center.
Oh,
of my
I see
navel.
that. Right around your
Towards
belly
the top,
button.
Yep.
Yeah, he still has some bruises coming up, and some of them are pretty
Bigger
spectacular.
ones elsewhere, but
Yeah, we don't need to talk about all the bruises. They're not good. Bruises are not comfy. But yeah, it's slowly getting better, and I'm sure the doctor will be happy when he sees him tomorrow.
yeah, everything seems to be recovering great, so I'm perfectly happy.
Ryder says that mask wearing is optional here except on public transport and in hospitals. Well, here mask wearing is not optional in a grocery store, and that's where I was. But people here
Not supposed to be. Yeah.
decide that it's optional, and they come in to the store with their mask on and then promptly take it off. I think they're worried they're going to lose brain cells, because the lack of oxygen and whatnot. Some of them. But whatever. I was like, not feeling comfortable. Because, been sick with things not as bad as COVID that have almost killed me, so I don't want to test the waters.
Oh dear.
All right, so I
But
guess
I don't see anything else going on.
I guess it's about time for us to say
Ask
bye.
anything, so
Well,
goodbye,
we've only got a
everybody.
few seconds here, so in South Africa you can get arrested for not wearing a mask in public. Yeah, well, considering what's going on down there, it doesn't surprise me, considering the new, is it Omicron that's coming out of there? Sounds like something from
New variation.
yeah. The name sounds like something from a book of bad spells. The name that they picked. But anyway,
I might point out that that's a Greek letter too, though.
well, yeah, they're using Greek letters.
Yeah.
So everybody stay safe and healthy, and send in your questions if you want to, and just be good to yourself and everything else. You can always send me an email if you want at shifrasmagicalcove@gmail.com if you, or you can friend me on Facebook at Siofra Bradigan. So, thank you everybody. As usual, it was fun and delightful.
Yes, it was.
So,
Very nice.
bye bye.